Hello, night dwellers. Welcome back to Shadow Storyteller, your favorite place for chilling bedtime tales and haunted whispers in the dark. If you love true stories that feel a little too close to home, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment if you've ever felt watched in your own apartment. Now turn down the lights, tuck yourself in, and maybe, just maybe, leave the hallway light on. Tonight's story is titled, The Basement Apartment on 47th Street. It was late September of 2019. Autumn was just beginning to settle into the streets of Chicago. The city was caught in that strange moment between seasons. The air was crisp, but not cold. The leaves along 47th Street were still mostly green, but the tips had started to brown and curl. You could smell it like dry earth, rust, and something old, something dying. Jenna Castillo, 26 years old, had just moved to the city from Tucson, Arizona. She'd landed a graphic design internship at a mid-sized firm downtown and was desperate to escape her parents' home after a rough breakup with her college boyfriend. Chicago felt like the kind of place where she could disappear for a while, reinvent herself. The apartment was perfect, at least on paper. A basement studio on West 47th Street, about 20 minutes from the Loop by train. Rent was cheap, almost suspiciously so. But Jenna had student loans, no savings, and a stubborn streak. She didn't ask questions. The landlord was an older woman named Mrs. Holloway. Thin, pale, with this stiff gray bun and skin like crumpled paper. She barely made eye contact when Jenna signed the lease. Just handed over a brass key with a blue tag and muttered, "Don't use the side door after midnight. Ever." Then she turned and walked away. Jenna had laughed it off at first, thinking maybe it was just a weird old lady superstition. But there was something about the way Mrs. Holloway said it, like she wasn't joking. Like she'd seen something. The basement apartment wasn't terrible. Small, sure, but cozy. Brick walls. One little window near the ceiling that looked out at street level. It smelled like dust and faint mildew, but Jenna filled it with candles and string lights. She even found a vintage armchair from Facebook Marketplace and a second-hand record player that made the place feel artsy, almost cinematic. But the noises started on the third night. It was around 2:45 a.m., and Jenna was lying awake, her body still adjusting to the city's rhythm. That was when she heard it. A dragging sound. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone was sliding a heavy bag across the concrete floor, just outside her front door. She froze. At first, she thought maybe it was upstairs. Footsteps, maybe. But the ceiling above her was silent. The sound wasn't coming from the floorboards. It was coming from the hallway just outside her unit. Just on the other side of her thin wooden door. She waited. Heart pounding. Breath held. After a long silence, there was a knock. Not loud. Just tap, tap, tap. She didn't move. Didn't speak. After a few minutes, the hallway went quiet again. The next morning, she asked Mrs. Holloway if anyone else lived in the basement. The old woman shook her head. "No, dear. Just you." Jenna didn't sleep that night. 2 weeks later, Jenna had almost convinced herself it was all in her head. Work was piling up. She was staying up late, drinking too much coffee, and living off frozen meals and trail mix. But then came the scratching. At first, it was light like mice. But she didn't see droppings or smell anything. No signs of infestation. Just the sound. From behind the walls. One night while brushing her teeth, she heard it again. Louder this time. Like fingers. Fingernails. She pressed her ear to the bathroom wall, which bordered the empty unit next door. There it was again. Scratch. Scratch. Scratch, followed by a faint voice. Muffled. Like someone whispering through drywall. She couldn't make out the words. Just the rhythm. And the anger. Like someone was begging. Or warning. That Friday night, Jenna invited her coworker, Maya, over for wine and pizza. She needed a break from the tension, and Maya had grown up in the city. Maybe she could offer some perspective, or at least some company. Around midnight, Maya went to the bathroom. She was gone a while. When she came back, her face was pale. "Did you know?" she whispered. There's writing under the sink? Jenna blinked. What kind of writing? Maya didn't answer. She just led her back to the bathroom, opened the cabinet doors, and pointed. There, scratched into the wood beneath the sink, were 3 words. She never left. They both stared at it in silence. Do you think it's like graffiti? Jenna finally asked, though her voice cracked. Maya shook her head. No. This was carved. Like with a knife. You didn't do this. No, Jenna whispered. They both jumped when something thudded, loud and sudden, from the hallway. They turned toward the door, breath caught in their chests. Another thud. Then, silence. Jenna didn't sleep at all that night. Maya left shortly after the thud, clearly spooked but trying to play it cool. She offered to stay over, but Jenna waved her off. She didn't want to seem fragile. Weak. Besides, she reasoned, it was probably just some water pipe or old heating system making noise. These buildings were ancient. Things creaked. That was normal. Still, she found herself leaving every light on. At 3:30 in the morning, she was still sitting cross-legged on the couch, a blanket pulled over her shoulders, eyes glued to the hallway. Nothing moved. Nothing sounded. But the silence wasn't comforting. It pressed down on her like a thick, invisible fog. Around 4, she finally drifted off, head tilted back, breath shallow. When she woke, it was nearly noon. She was disoriented, neck sore and mouth dry. The sunlight barely made it through the tiny window, casting long slashes of light across the brick wall. For a moment, she thought it had all been a dream. The noises, the scratching, the words under the sink. But when she walked into the bathroom and knelt in front of the cabinet, the carving was still there. Sharp, jagged, real. She stared at it for a long time. She decided not to go into work that day. Called in sick, though she lied and blamed food poisoning. Her supervisor didn't press. Instead, she opened her laptop and did what any sane person would do. She searched the address. There wasn't much. No online reviews. No tenant complaints. Just a few old city zoning maps and an archived news article from 1994. It mentioned a fire. Something vague about a small electrical fire in a sublevel unit on West 47th Street. No casualties reported. Jenna dug deeper. Another article from a local paper, dated 3 weeks later. Same building. Headline read, "Missing woman last seen on 47th Street." The article mentioned a name. Veronica Shields, 24 years old. Last seen leaving work late. Her purse had been found outside the basement entrance of the apartment building. No signs of forced entry. No suspects. Case still open. Jenna sat back, skin crawling. That night, she couldn't stop looking at the side door. It was at the end of the hallway, just around the corner from her unit. Metal. Painted black. No windows. She'd barely noticed it before, but now it stood out in her mind like a scar. She remembered what Mrs. Holloway had said. Don't use the side door after midnight. Ever. At 11:57, Jenna was still awake. She stared at the glowing numbers on her microwave clock. Her heart thudded in her chest. She didn't know what she was expecting, or why she was even thinking about it. Maybe she wanted answers. Or closure. Maybe she just wanted to prove to herself that this was all in her head. That the noises and the whispers and the writing were just stress and sleep deprivation. At 12:01 she stood up. Slid her feet into slippers. She moved slowly down the hallway. The light above the door flickered as she approached, humming softly. There was no doorknob, just a rusted push bar and a slot for a keycard that no longer worked. The bar was cold under her palm. She pushed. The door creaked open into pitch black. Cold air swept in around her legs, and the smell hit her like a wave. Damp. Earthy. Like something buried. Jenna reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and turned on the flashlight. The beam illuminated a narrow staircase, descending into darkness. She hesitated, then stepped inside. The door shut behind her. The sound echoed, loud, final. She was alone now. The only light came from her phone, which flickered once as she descended the stairs. There were 12 steps. At the bottom, the ground leveled out into what looked like a storage corridor. Concrete floor. Exposed pipes along the ceiling. Rows of old metal doors, all closed. Some had padlocks. Some didn't. The walls were covered in old graffiti and chipped paint. Something dripped from the ceiling. Jenna moved forward, flashlight darting nervously from side to side. The silence was so complete, she could hear her own breathing. Her own heartbeat. She passed one door, then another. Then stopped. The third door on the left was ajar. A thin line of red light spilled out from the gap. She froze. Tried to convince herself it was probably just an old emergency light or a neon sign from somewhere outside. But this part of the building was buried. There were no windows. She took a step closer. The door creaked open as she neared it, like it had been waiting. The red light inside pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. Inside the room was nothing. No furniture. No storage boxes. Just concrete walls and a dirt-covered floor. But the light, where was it coming from? Her phone started to flicker again. The battery dropped suddenly from 60% to 15. Then 10. Then 5. And that was when she heard it. A whisper. Close. Right behind her ear. She spun around. Flashlight beam slicing through empty space. Nothing there. But the whisper came again, this time from in front of her. It was a voice. Low. Hoarse. Familiar. Help me. Jenna backed out of the room, heart in her throat. Her flashlight blinked out. Her phone went dead. The hallway plunged into blackness. Something touched her arm. She screamed. She turned and ran, bare feet slapping the cold floor. Up the stairs. Toward the door. When she reached it, she shoved against the push bar. It didn't move. She pushed again. Nothing. The door was locked. She was trapped. She screamed again, pounding on the metal, calling out for help. No one answered. Behind her, down the stairs, something began to move. She heard dragging. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone was sliding a heavy bag across the concrete. The sound grew louder. Closer. Then, just as suddenly, the door clicked and swung open. Light flooded the space. Jenna fell forward into the hallway, gasping. Mrs. Holloway stood above her, holding the door open with one hand, her expression unreadable. I told you, she said quietly. Not after midnight. Jenna stared up at her, trembling. What? What is down there? Mrs. Holloway sighed. Veronica never left, she said. She was the first, but not the last. Then she turned and walked away, letting the door close with a dull thud behind her. Jenna never spoke of that night again. Not at work. Not to Maya. She moved out 2 weeks later. Broke her lease. Left most of her furniture behind. She didn't care. But sometimes, in her new apartment on the north side, she still wakes in the middle of the night. At exactly 2:45. And she hears it. That sound. The dragging. The whisper. The voice. Help me. And every time, she checks the walls for writing. The sink. The floor. So far, nothing. But something tells her it's only a matter of time. Jenna tried to move on. She told herself the hallucinations were a side effect of stress, of too much caffeine and too little sleep, maybe even some kind of underground gas leak or black mold. It was an old building after all. There were plenty of rational explanations if she really wanted them. But deep down, she didn't believe them. After she moved to the north side, into a clean, modern apartment above a bakery, things improved on the surface. She slept a little better. She went back to work. She even started dating someone casually, though she kept him at arm's length. Still, some nights she would wake at exactly 2:45 a.m., drenched in sweat, her body frozen in fear for no reason she could explain. One night, she finally told Maya everything. They were sitting at a wine bar in Logan Square, both a little tipsy, the air smelling like rain and summer garbage. Jenna told her about the noises, the door, the red light, Mrs. Holloway's strange warning, and the dragging sound on the stairs. Everything. Maya didn't laugh. She didn't dismiss it. Instead, she looked at her quietly and said, "You need to talk to someone about this." "I just did," Jenna said, trying to smile. "No," Maya said. "I mean someone who knows what they're doing. Someone who's seen things like this before." Jenna blinked. "You believe me?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Let's just say, I've had my own experiences, and I've seen what happens when people ignore them." She took out her phone, typed something in, and slid it across the table. A contact. A woman named Eliza Moreno, paranormal researcher. Jenna stared at it. "You're serious?" "I trust her," Maya said. "She helped my cousin win their house in Joliet." "Never mind. Just call her. Please." Jenna didn't call right away. But 2 nights later, she woke to find her bedroom door wide open. She never slept with it open. That same night, she dreamed of the basement again. The red light. The carved words. And the voice. "Help me." In the morning, she dialed the number. Eliza Moreno sounded calm. Professional. Not what Jenna expected. Her voice was low and steady, with the cadence of someone used to dealing with panic. "Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning." So Jenna did. By the end of the call, Eliza had already made arrangements to come up to Chicago. She lived in Peoria, about 2 hours southwest. "I'll be there Thursday," she said. "Don't go back to the building until then. Don't open any doors. Don't invite anything in." That last part stuck with Jenna long after the call ended. Thursday came. Rain fell hard that morning. Thunder cracked low across the city as Eliza arrived, dressed in a long coat, her dark hair tied back in a loose braid. She carried a small leather bag and a tablet she used to take notes as Jenna recounted the story once more, in person this time. Then they drove together to West 47th Street. Jenna hadn't been back since the day she moved out. The sight of the building made her stomach turn. The bricks looked darker than she remembered. The windows more clouded. The front door hung crooked, like it had been slammed too hard one too many times. They rang Mrs. Holloway's bell. No one answered. They waited. Tried again. Still nothing. "She's probably avoiding us," Jenna said. Eliza nodded slowly. "Then we start without her." They walked around the side of the building, past overgrown hedges and a rusting garbage bin. The side entrance loomed ahead, just as Jenna remembered it. Black metal, no windows, the push bar dark with rust. Eliza took out a small EMF reader and a silver pendant, shaped like an eye. She didn't explain them. Jenna reached for the door. But it was already unlocked. It opened without resistance. The cold air hit her immediately. Stale. Sour. And under it something worse, like iron and rot and forgotten things. They descended slowly, Eliza recording notes as they moved. At the bottom of the stairs, the hallway looked the same. Concrete floor. Closed doors. Moisture on the ceiling. But the third door on the left, the one with the red light, was no longer ajar. It was closed. Tight. Eliza paused. "Did you say this door was open last time?" Jenna nodded. "Do you remember what was inside?" "Nothing. Just light. And a voice." Eliza pulled something from her bag. A small black box with a red dial. She held it close to the door and watched the needle twitch. "Something's here," she whispered. She placed the pendant on the doorknob and whispered in Spanish. A few words Jenna didn't catch. Then she turned the knob. The door opened. No red light this time. Just darkness. Deep and total. Eliza stepped in first. Jenna followed, heart pounding. They stood in the room for a long moment. Nothing moved. Then the whisper came. "Help me." Clearer now. Not a dream. Not a memory. Real. It came from the far wall. The concrete shifted slightly, visibly, like it breathed. Eliza moved closer. "There's something behind it," she said. Jenna shook her head. "That wall's solid. There's nothing there." Eliza placed her palm against it. And then something knocked. From the other side. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Jenna gasped. The wall cracked. A thin line appeared down the middle, spreading like a spiderweb. Dust fell from the ceiling. Eliza stepped back. Then the crack split open, revealing a small hollow space, just large enough for a person to fit inside. Inside the space was a skeleton, wrapped in a torn red scarf. Eliza knelt, carefully reaching in. She pulled out a wallet, decayed but intact. Inside, a faded ID card. Veronica Shields. Jenna turned away, bile rising in her throat. She was sealed in here, Eliza said softly. Someone walled her in. Alive, maybe. The air in the room shifted. A wind blew from nowhere. Cold. Furious. And then Jenna heard it again. Not a whisper. A scream. Not hers. Not Eliza's. It came from deep below. Under the floor. Another voice. Then another. And another. Help me. Help me. They're still here. Eliza grabbed Jenna's arm. We need to go. They ran. Up the stairs. Out the door. The building shook behind them. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was a dull gray. And behind them, the black metal door slammed shut. By itself. Mrs. Holloway was never seen again. Police searched the building after an anonymous tip. Eliza refused to give names. They found the remains. Identified them as Veronica's. But that wasn't all. They found another door. Sealed in concrete. Leading deeper underground. It had no handle. No hinges. Just carvings in the cement. One word repeated. Stay. No one opened it. Not yet. And Jenna? She moved again. This time far from Chicago. Changed her number. Deleted her social media. But some nights, in that space between sleep and waking, she hears them. The knocks. The dragging. The voices. And once, when she looked under her new sink, she found 3 words carved into the wood. She never left. 6 months later. Jenna lived quietly in Oregon now, in a rental cabin near the coast. A small town where no one asked too many questions, and fog rolled in off the water like smoke from another world. She didn't tell people what had happened in Chicago. Not the full story. Not even Eliza. They'd exchanged a few emails in the weeks after, but Eliza had grown distant. One day, Jenna got an automated reply saying Eliza was on an indefinite sabbatical. The website was gone. The number disconnected. Maybe she had finally seen too much. Jenna tried to let go. But the nightmares returned. Louder now. Hungrier. The voices were more frequent and more specific. Not just help me, but names, dates, details, like something was learning how to speak more clearly through her. One night, she found herself standing outside at 3 a.m, barefoot in the wet grass. She didn't remember leaving her bed. Her hands were muddy. Her feet were bleeding. That's when she decided to go back. Not to the basement. Not to Chicago. To the woman who had started all of this. Mrs. Holloway. The building on West 47th was boarded up. After Veronica's remains were found, the city declared it unfit for occupancy. No renovations. No demo permits. It just stood there. Waiting. Jenna broke in through the back. She knew the layout. Knew the path. Down the stairs. Past the hallway. But the door, the black side door, was gone. Walled over. Smooth cement where it once stood. She walked past the sealed threshold and stopped in front of the spot where the red-lit room had been. The space behind the wall where Veronica had been found. But this time, something was different. The wall was painted. White. Fresh. And someone had written something in red marker across it. 3 words. Not the usual warning. Not she never left. But something worse. You let her out. Jenna's breath caught. She turned. And the hallway lights flickered on. Even though there was no power. Then she heard it again. The dragging. Only now, it wasn't behind her. It was above her. Footsteps on the floorboards. She backed away slowly, heart racing, until she hit the wall. Then the voice came, not a whisper but clear. Calm. Familiar. You were always meant to return. Jenna spun and saw Mrs. Holloway standing at the end of the hallway. But it wasn't the same woman. Her hair was wrong. Too dark. Her skin wrong. Too tight. Her eyes too wide. And she was smiling. Jenna blinked, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. That wasn't Mrs. Holloway. That wasn't even a person. It was wearing her face. Like a mask. The creature stepped forward, slow and deliberate. I told you not to open that door, it said. But that's the thing about warnings. They only work when people believe they're meant for them. Jenna backed away, tripping, her hands scraping the wall. What are you? She gasped. The creature tilted its head. I'm a door, it said. You're the key. Then it opened its mouth. And Jenna saw nothing inside. Just darkness. Endless. Pulling her forward. The last thing she heard before the world went silent was her own voice. From somewhere far behind her. Help me. 2 weeks later, the property was quietly demolished by a private contractor. No permits filed. No salvage work done. Just gone. Wiped clean. But in a quiet town on the Oregon coast, in the corner of a new tenant's kitchen cabinet, 3 words are carved in the wood. You let her out. And every night at 2:45, the basement door creaks open. Even though there isn't one.